Hey there, guys. Thank you for watching Are We Podcasting Yet? I put some links down there in the description for you guys to click on if you want to find out more information about some of the topics that we will be talking about on the podcast. Because, full disclosure, we don't always know everything there is to know about some of the subject matter that comes up on this podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
What is up, guys? Hello, world. How's it going? Welcome to another episode of Are We Podcasting Yet? Thank you for joining us yet again. And Justin, why don't you just go ahead and introduce our lovely guest today?
Today, we have our dearest friend, the eco-activist, actress, TV host, model, YUMIKA HOSKIN.
Golf clap.
Yay!
I give golf clap. Yay!
Every time Justin says eco-activist, I swear to God, he's like taking the piss out on it. Eco.
I'm not. That's it's on your Instagram. You are an eco-activist.
I know.
Let's start with this then. Let's define eco-activist. Here we go. That's a good jumping off point.
I think so.
What is an eco-activist?
I mean, I think it's like someone who has a voice or uses their platform to raise awareness with, whether it's conservation or, pollution, anything to do with like the ecosystem and how we need to protect it.
When did you know you wanted to get involved? Because we've known Yumi for quite a while now. We've been able to watch her career grow, but the eco-activism kind of started within the last 4 years?
I mean, I feel like less. Like
Was it less?
Well, I've always cared about the environment, but I think in terms of like switching my platform up has been since I started my own brand, the Peco Bag, which is all about single-use plastic. So I think it was like from that where I was like, okay, I actually care about this and I really want to talk about this and this has purpose. So yeah, I kind of just went on to edit on Instagram, put in eco-activist, got rid of like actress, models, blah, blah, blah. That's all it takes. And then I was, boom, an eco-activist.
Boom. I think we need to get green check marks on Instagram for eco-activist to go next to the blue verified check mark. So like, think eco verified.
Did you have like a moment? Did you have like this epiphany at some point where you were like, I don't know, under a tree? And you were like,
you do
make
fun of it.
I love this tree. I want to make sure it stays here and is happy. Like, did that happen? Something like that?
It did happen, Justin. I don't know why you're laughing at that. But yes, that
did
did
it really?
happen.
Was it here in Singapore?
Then, I can't remember. It was some tree somewhere on some land. But another thing is, I love cows. So every time I go somewhere, I always want to hug a cow. It's like a new.
How close do you get to actually hugging said cows? Or is it just kind of one of those things you always want to try and you haven't?
No, I go, Shagao. Did I have, no, I didn't. I wanted to hug a cow in Shagao, but I didn't. I hugged a cow in Bali. They just let you hug them. And I hugged a cow in London. I just hugged cats.
This is why America's messed up, Justin, because we don't have cow hugging in America. Pretty sure it's called cow tipping. But that's called cow tipping.
Have you ever tried to do that?
I have never gone cow tipping, and I just want to go out and say I'm not a supporter of the cow tipping movement.
Yeah, so I've tried to do it multiple times.
You have, Justin.
Yes, we've gone out in the middle of the night to try and go cow tipping. For those of people who don't know what cow tipping is, it's when you go out in the night to where the cows are.
Look at Yumi's face. Justin, look at Yumi's face.
And you try and presumably the cows are sleeping. And so while the cow's sleeping, you push them over.
Yeah. And then they can't get up.
I think this is a myth because every time I've tried to do this, the cows are not sleeping and they are not happy you're there. And they get aggressive because it's night. Yeah. They're like probably protecting their calves and like you're out there in the fields and they're like, no. We couldn't even get close enough to the cows to tip them. So it's never happened, and I've never heard of anybody successfully tipping a cow.
Yeah, well, that was an excellent explanation. I even learned a little bit about it. Yeah, Yumi, this is a thing, supposedly. And Justin's got a good fair point. I've never seen either a video of cow tipping, or I've also never seen anyone do it. But it was something that growing up I just heard of, and so maybe it was always like a urban legend or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how you do it. They're very alert animals. Like they wake up when you approach them. They're not sleeping.
And they're heavy.
I am so shocked. You're such a bad person.
I didn't tip a cow.
Okay, first of all, when you said we don't have cow hugging, I thought you said we only have cow eating. And then suddenly
You did say that.
I can't believe you said, I can't believe you've done cow tipping. That's horrible. You're horrible.
We didn't. It was unsuccessful.
Yeah, but you tried.
I was young. I was like 18.
I don't care.
Okay, I find it very hard to believe, though, young lady, you're from Australia. There is a lot of like plains and flatland and cows areas. I would imagine Australians have gone cow tipping before, if it is indeed a thing.
I'm not Googling this. I'm not commenting to this. I'm not going to ever cow tip. To being cow is cool.
Surely, Yumi, there were things that you did when you were 18 years old that you look back on now and think to yourself, yeah, that's not something I would do now. That was in poor form.
No.
Segue, things we did when we were 18 that we really wish we did not do.
Cow tipping.
Cow tipping one, right there. There we go. Very, very nice. Very nice.
Alan?
Oh my goodness. Something I wish that I hadn't done. Okay, this is totally random, but it's a fun little story, so we'll go with it. I was dating a girl around the end of my high school career who was Wiccan. She was a witch. That's what a Wicca or Wiccan would be, a religious. Oh, I have two stories.
I like most things when I was 18 I should have been doing, but go on.
I might have been 17. So she was a witch, technically. And I didn't know much about Wicca culture. But supposedly she had an altar and candles, and she said she could change the color of her eyes. Anyway, not proven. But I go on a summer camp as a counselor, and I'm gone for 2 weeks over the summer, and I love it. And I decide I'm going to stay 2 extra weeks. And I call her, and I tell her I'm going to stay 2 extra weeks, and she was not happy about this. And the very next day, I broke my ankle on a hike and had to go back home. I think that she did that to me. And I wish that I had not stayed for the extra 2 weeks and got my ankle broken by a witch.
First of all, can I just say, I love this conversation. I always wanted to be a witch. Didn't have those powers, unfortunately. Tried to buy some spell books. Didn't actually work. But yeah, I mean, even my housemate has like stories about how he dated a witch and how she like turned the sky into this crazy thunderstorm, and she would like rock up to these festivals, and he would see her, and then she would disappear, like just standing there. And oh my God, so into this.
Yeah, well, my witch did not disappear, but it's not a figure of speech like, oh, she was a witch. No, she was Wiccan, and that was my first and only foray into that side of life.
How long were you dating the witch?
It was a few months. It wasn't a long time. She was sweet. She was super sweet and really nice and just like gentle and kind-hearted. She was a musical theater kid. Theater kids, by the way. Theater kids. That's all I got to say. I was a theater kid. Wow. It's a lot of interesting things.
Don't you think that like even nowadays with herbalists and like, you know, people who use crystals and stuff kind of have that element of witchiness?
I think there's a whole...
witch.
Yeah,
I mean, the
I think there's a whole
like
world. See, I knew we're gonna stand on the opposite end of the spectrum from Justin. Not the opposite end, but I mean, there's a whole trend of alternative healing, right, and alternative medicine. Many people may have said at one point that acupuncture was witchcraft, right? But I personally have found that acupuncture has worked wonders. So I don't know. It's what do you think, Justin? Do you believe in witchcraft?
No.
Would you date a witch?
How compatible is this witch with me? I think there's
any witch would be.
You know how there's like a hot crazy level? There's like a hot witchy level. Like how much witch is to her hotness? I think.
So you're saying that craziness and hotness are directly proportional to each other? Is that what you're saying? Is that
no?
As hotness increases.
You will permit more craziness the more attractive the person.
Okay.
right?
And that's not necessarily physical attraction, any kind of attraction. The more attracted you are to someone in general, you will put up with more things. That's true.
Yes, but I think just for this sake of argument, we'll just go with physical attractiveness. I
dig
think
in that hole. Keep digging. I'm trying to get you out of the hole.
That is the argument, right? Like there's that famous viral YouTube video that went where that guy does the chart, and then down there's the unicorn because she's incredibly attractive, but not crazy at all. But that's
anyway.
I'll send you the link, Yumi. I'll put the link in the description. Everybody knows what I'm talking about.
I just think sometimes you need to go to therapy because you're gonna wind up alone. Because all you're looking for is like hot girls, and you're looking for
I'm not. That is not.
And the physicality.
That is not true.
This is his therapy. This is his therapy right now. This podcast.
This is the therapy. Thank you for joining my therapy session, Yumika. And that is definitely, it is so not true. I do not only go for attractive women just because they're attractive. I initially meet women a lot of the times based on physical appearance because we're visual creatures, and I see somebody like, let's chat to them. Now, the duration of time that I spend with them after that initial encounter is definitely based upon how smart they are, how well we get along, what other things that they have to offer mentally and emotionally. So you're wrong.
So how many of those good-looking, let's talk about even like the 20-year-old models or whatever, how many of them eventuated into something longer than 2 months?
Several. 2 months? Oh, is 2 months the mark?
I'm just gonna put myself on mute real quick. I want you guys to continue this.
No, but seriously, you're going for physicality, and then once you start hanging out with them and you realize that the chemistry fizzles, you haven't got the compatibility. So that's why.
And then it's over.
But then why do you keep going for the physicality ones? You're going for
I've met there's plenty of attractive women, Yumi, that are incredibly smart and funny, and that I get along with, and we're interested in the same thing. It's like, and I've had relationships that lasted, a year almost, and then like 6 months.
Do you want to be in a relationship now?
If I meet the right person, sure.
But would you like go on a blind date with someone and not be too fussed about the chemistry at the beginning? Like, wouldn't
not be too fussed about the chemistry at the beginning? I think chemistry at the beginning is pretty important. I mean, important for me.
I mean, I think that intellectual stimulation is also chemistry.
Yeah. No, yeah. So yeah, if I'm not intellectually stimulated at first, it's game over.
Yeah, it's all about stimulation. Whatever form of stimulation
you need to be stimulated. Like all
you gotta intellectually stimulated, emotionally stimulated, witchcraftly stimulated, whatever floats your boat, get her done.
I mean, how many of the women that I've actually like really dated, Yumi, that you know of, have not been smart, or that I haven't got along with?
Have not.
None.
I don't think you should answer that.
Have not been smart? Are you kidding me?
Ooh. Okay, you can't say names.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm gonna need first and last names.
You could say names,
postal codes, and address.
Yeah, no, but like that I've actually really dated.
Yeah,
you dated these girls.
I think that you guys have different definitions of dated. I think I can already tell where you guys are not. You're not on the same page. If Justin was dating a girl for a couple months, he wasn't dating her. They were having a very friendly and physically oriented communion.
Exactly.
Do you think then, Justin, you would never be able to do long distance?
Oh, no.
Not necessarily, no.
You mean?
Why?
I get distracted very easily.
So you need the physical.
I think at this point in my life, yeah, it's important to me. Sorry. I do need the person
at this point in your life, compared to when?
Yeah, exactly.
Compared to when I'm 70.
Compared to the future.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought you were referring to the past.
Huh?
Oh, that's funny. Yumi, let's go there. You brought out the LDR. Do you believe in the possibilities of an LTR/LDR?
100%, but you have to have like a end date to it, and you also have to be completely aligned with your future, and not okay. So for me and my partner, right, like we both want to have 2 locations where we live. We both are very family orientated, so we respect that within each other. And we both are entrepreneurs. So we know we have to like dedicate a certain amount of our energy to work, to hustle, to make the money. I don't know, like I think that's because I've also been like not in a relationship for most of my life. I like my independence, and therefore long distance worked for me. This year was much harder because obviously we couldn't actually make the plans to see each other, so that was frustrating. But before that, like last year, it was totally fine. Yeah, we have an end date where we're ending it in terms of long distance next year. We're gonna like move somewhere together. You just have to kind of like, when you get on the phone, they just have to be so damn stimulating for you to stay in it, you know?
Yeah, I do. I think I do. This year is not a good bellwether for the argument or discussion as to whether long distance can work.
Yeah.
I think this year was a bad year for anybody trying to do that. I, as you know, was also trying to do that. You guys did a little bit better than we did. But I think it depends on situation and personality and understanding ahead of time before long distance starts. Like a certain amount of connection needs to have been developed beforehand, no matter what. Also, I think it has to do with if you're active or if you're quarantined at home. It's a totally different thing when you're living 2 different lifestyles. Because one of the things you brought up is that you guys are both entrepreneurs. So you both totally understand what the other person needs in terms of time and commitment and stuff. But if you're living 2 different lifestyles, but on opposite ends of the world, it's difficult, especially with time difference. So I don't know. I used to think this could work, but
if your kind of life plan trajectories for the individual people aren't going in the same direction, that creates.
That's for any relationship, right?
Oh, not necessarily. If you're in the same location, one person can be like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur and do this, and the other person can be like, I'm going to be an accountant, right?
But you both got to decide whether you want to have a family or whether you want to live in this type of home or that type of home. So, but no, you're right. You don't have to have the same career trajectory at all.
Right.
Yeah. Like if Rob and I ever broke up, it would be because I've suddenly turned around and said, I want to live in Singapore.
Mm-hmm.
And he wouldn't want to come back and live here. So then it would be, but then it's fine. Like if that happens, touch wood, like I think it's a very nice, mature adult breakup, because it's like, there was nothing wrong in the relationship, but like if each of you needs something different, and if it means like living in a different location because you feel, I don't know, you need that, or that's your path, or that's where your career is really going to bloom, then so be it. But I'm choosing to move because I'm actually ready to move into a different chapter of my career path as well.
What if you can't move?
What do you mean? Why wouldn't I be able to move?
I mean, that's true, right? Long distance.
What
is
if you
also
can't get your
luxury.
visa to where you want to go? What if you can't move to the same place? You're not from the places, neither of you from the places that you're trying to move to right now. Could be complications.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think it'll work out. This is where the witchiness comes in. You just need to trust the universe. Everything happens for a reason. If we can't move there, then we're planning to move to London. If we can't get visas there, then we're going to do 6 months of a sabbatical and jump from like Italy to like living in Amsterdam to living in London for a bit. And then we'll go to New York.
That's cool. That's a good plan.
Yeah. So we have plan A, B, and C. But if I wanted to stay in Singapore and I wanted to like pursue, acting and hosting and blah, 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 then I don't think that could work. I'm ready for a new challenge.
Yeah, makes sense. I think a lot of people have come to that kind of discovery this past year with everything that's going on. Alan, so why did your long distance relationship go wrong?
Wow, that's a great topic.
And now we're in Alan's therapy.
Great topic to dive into that right there. Tough, man. Distance, like we touched on it a little bit before. Distance is tough. Time difference is extraordinarily tough. Like, for example, it's 11 a.m. for you guys right now, and it's 7 p.m. for me. There's really only a small window. And if you go back and forth between the East and West a lot, you start to learn what those windows are. But there's really only a small window that you're both awake, available, have the energy to put into it, and not busy doing something else, right? Like when my evening time is like the middle of her work day, or her evening time is like the middle of my night, like 3, 4 a.m. It's tough to make sure you have that window of time to spend with each other. Because I think that's the main thing. And I think, Yumi, you touched on it, is you still got to figure out how to spend some quality time. That's the tough part. I mean, it's not tough, it's enjoyable, but you got to, it takes a lot more consideration. It can't just be like, hey, come over tonight, let's watch a movie and chill, we'll order some food or something. It's not like that. It's from like 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. I'm free for a call. Like, let's watch this TV show for the first time. Like you figure out how to do quality time. And that was all going well for us, except I got a job in Singapore, and I tried to get back into Singapore during this time period, and I couldn't do it. And at that point, we realized there was no end in sight, as Yumi pointed out. We had no idea when the next time would be, when an American would be allowed to re-enter Singapore without a good reason, right? So I think this all kind of added up, and I was coming out here, and I decided I wanted to kind of make sure my base was out here, and she's doing great out there. So yeah, COVID did this to us.
Yeah, it sucks, man.
Do you think like you would get back together if the circumstances were different?
I don't know. How do you guys feel about that, by the way? Because I personally have never gotten back together with any of my exes. But I'm not saying that I wouldn't ever do that. But in my personal experience, I've never wanted to I've wanted to stay friends with, but I've never wanted to get intimately close again with someone that was in my past. But I know that people have done it.
I've definitely kind of done that a few times. And it's great. Fun. And then you're like, no, wait, we were right before.
Yeah. This is what we realized.
Yeah. Or it's also circumstantial. When a certain amount of time passes in between people, you start to realize, oh wait, our lives are on different trajectories. Even though we obviously really do get along, and this could work out in another parallel universe. In this universe, in this reality, we're going these two different separate ways.
If you broke up for a reason, I feel like you broke up for a reason. Like, that's a pretty intense conversation to have, being like, we're over, we're done, blah, 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 blah. Maybe it's a comfort thing for me. I like to always close a chapter so I can focus completely on me for what I need to get done. People
change though, right? It's like, as you just said, you close that chapter so that then you can focus on yourself. So a lot of times after these breakups, people change. And I've definitely had a couple of circumstances where I'd be dating this girl, and there'd be a couple reasons where I'd be like, she's, there's this, and because of that, I just don't see this going places. And then we stopped dating, and then like a year later, she's achieved those things that I wish she'd achieved. Like, man, I really wish I kind of stuck that out with her.
Oh, I don't know. I feel like in a good relationship, you change with each other. And the other person is meant to help you change, right? So like I find in my relationship with Rob, like I'm an avoidant. Like I think it's like an attachment style. I'm pretty avoidant.
I know that book.
Oh yeah, I don't know that. I haven't read the book.
The attachment styles, yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's essentially the idea is you're either avoidant or you're anxious. And anxious is like the needy person who needs the attention all of the time to reaffirm how much they mean to the other person. And then the avoidant person is like, whoa, I need my personal space. Whoa, this person's getting too latched on. Justin, you're an avoidant person. It's like, whoa, this is getting too close. But the really messed up part about it, and it took me a while to understand how this works in relationships, is that when someone is extra avoidant, meaning they're like standoffish, they want their space, the other person becomes more anxious and becomes needing more of that attention. Just like when someone's getting more and more needy and more attention seeking, and they need to be closer and closer, more attached, the anxious person will then by nature start to get more and more standoffish because they start to get more and more. So it's this really kind of nasty cycle that happens. And what it means is that none of us are 100% this way. It's that when we're in relationship with another person, it's always going to be different. And which side of that coin we're on is dependent on, variables with that relationship. Was that right, Yumi? Was that what you were thinking?
I think, no, that's right. I feel like I'm the avoidant, and then Rob is the needy one. But I think we've like learned to kind of meet in the middle. So I've learned to like, I'm so mean. He'll be like, oh, I miss you. I love you. And I'm just like, cool, thanks.
You don't say love you back?
or I'll say
like,
it. And
I also like you too.
But I'm typing it kind of like, love you too. And he's like, why you gotta be like that? I'm like, it just feels so forced. Like, but it's kind of like in person, it's better. But when it comes to text and it's always like, what are you doing? What are you doing? I love you. I miss you. Blah, blah, blah. Like it makes the avoidant me comes in and I'm like, hey, just leave me alone for 5 minutes. But it's good because we balance each other out. I have made myself be okay with being more vulnerable. I mean, I'm avoidant because I don't like that vulnerability and sharing feelings. So he pulls it out of me, which is a good thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Another thing a really good friend of mine told me, and who knows if it's true, but it sounded right. He said he had more years experience in his marriage and stuff. And he said, in terms of that kind of give and take of being needy or being standoffish, and we're saying avoidant and anxious, he says, over the course of a relationship, and maybe multiple years that it takes to find this out, he says, over the course of a relationship, it completely switches which end of that spectrum you're going to end up being on based on life situations, based on job situations, or on friends or family issues, or whatever is going through your life. And so he said, there may be that time when you're like, oh, I don't feel like I'm into her as much as she's into me, but I really, really like her. But I'm so worried that she feels stronger and that's off. That maybe that might change in like 4 months if you just give it the chance. And that there may be a time where like you need more of their attention. So it's interesting. This stuff is really complicated. And it's
also this mix of like, so my friends Mel and Louie have been together for like, I think 7 or 9 years, something like that. And they said there'll be points in the relationship where one of them loves the other more than the other person. So it'll be a constant switch, especially when you've been together for that long. But I also think it's like a mix of the feminine and the masculine. Sometimes I'll be in my alpha state where I'm kind of like, avoidant and Rob's being all needy. And then in the points where I'm like vulnerable, like this year, I was like kind of up and down emotionally. He'll step in and be the alpha, and then I'll be able to sit in my feminine. So it's
changes, fluctuates.
Yeah. Justin, does it ever fluctuate for you, or are you pretty much always on the one side of that spectrum?
No. I've been on the other side of that coin, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I've seen the whole thing in flux. No, more than once. Yeah. Definitely more than once. More than twice.
Have you ever had your heart broken, Justin?
Yes, several times.
I'm sorry, buddy.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Happens. You want to talk about that right now? I don't know.
No, I'm not going to crack that open. I was just curious if you would say that you had. I had never heard you admit that before.
That's not true.
I don't think so.
How many times have you been heartbroken, Ellen?
Every time. I'm even heartbroken when I'm the one who's like, I don't think we can do this relationship anymore. It's always tough. That's a totally fair question, because what constitutes a heartbreak? Like how severe or whatever, like it always hurts. That's what I find. If you loved them, it always hurts. And I kind of think a part of it will always sting a little bit. It's just that sting slowly starts to fade away, or turns into maybe an appreciation you have for them, or memories you have, right? Those memories sting early on, I find.
I've
once. What's his name? We'll find him. He's done. Billy. Oh,
wow. We just said his name.
Yeah.
But I know before it was he who will not be named, but now I'm just like, whatever. But yeah, we met in Singapore, and
sorry about that.
It's okay. Thank you.
He seemed nice. Seemed like a nice guy.
He's a nice guy.
When you first meet, he's a very nice guy.
Yeah, he is a nice guy. He just has so many insecurities, right? He was a male model, and like, you don't deal with that kind of stuff. You go into the same sort of patterns. We were together for about 3 or 4 months, and then he went to Bangkok and I went back to Melbourne to finish my studies. And then in Bangkok, he had already started like beating on me. And I warned him as well. I'm like, if you ever do something, trust me, I will find out. I don't care if you're in Bangkok, trust me, I will find out. And I found out. But this is after he'd broken up with me, like says the relationship fizzled out or the chemistry fizzled out. And then 2 weeks later, he turned around and changed his tune. He was like, no, I regret it. I want to get back together. And then while he was trying to court me to get back together, my other friend in Bangkok reached out being like, you're not seriously getting back together with him, right? You know, you broke up because he was cheating on you. And I was like, oh, stupid me, took him back because it was my first love, I would say.
Oh.
And well, I don't know about, it was a love, but I can't say it was a huge love. It was my first relationship. So I got back together with him because I was too curious not to give it a chance. And I knew I would, if I didn't kill that curiosity, I would still keep thinking about it. So gave him a chance. I was meant to move to Singapore, you know, put that up for about 6 months to move to Taiwan with him. And then straight away when I got there, I already knew he was already cheating on me again, like emotionally as well. So it was the second time, the heartbreak was fine. I took it really well because I was just very much like already in survival mode. And I guess I already knew. But the first time it happened, oh my God, I turned into like a 14-year-old girl. Like I went to my mom crying, and I never do that. That was tough.
We have to go through that stuff. It brings up an interesting question, guys, because I've always been curious about this. I've never been in a relationship where one person has cheated and then we have tried to come back together. But I know that does happen. And I know that people have different opinions on that. And about how much work it takes to get there, if it's even possible. I suppose it depends on the person, right? But if I were in that situation, I don't know because I haven't been in it, but I don't know if I'd be able to take them back. But then again, maybe that's really short-sighted of me, right? Maybe that's too simple an answer because life's not that black and white.
It just depends on so many variables. Depends on the person, the circumstance. It's a hard one to really try to put into a box.
If they both cheated, does that like nullify it out? Then are you just like good to go, clean?
I think that might be worse.
It doesn't really work that way, right? It's not like a balance.
But again, it depends on the person. There are probably some people in a relationship. Sorry?
I know a couple, they're not together anymore, but they still have so much love for each other. But I know a couple who got together quite young that they were cheating on each other, and then they like stopped that and they were like, let's just be committed. And their relationship was amazing. But I think it's like, what's your love language, right? Are you not getting physical touch from the other person as much? Are you not feeling like, I think it's to do with the love languages for sure. But I also am a bit more open-minded now in that a lot of couples do open relationships or like they do swinging or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I don't judge that anymore. Like I used to judge that, being like, how could you want to sleep with somebody else or blah, blah, blah. But I think like when you're so secure in your relationship and like if you can talk about your past like sexual innuendos or whatever and can kind of be like not affected by it and be like, oh cool, yeah, like oh this is a turn on hearing about this. I think physical sex is just physical sex. And now that I've experienced making love sex compared to physical sex would not, you know, or lust sex, I guess we would call it, would not affect my feelings.
But then how do you trust? And like, you brought up a great point, Yumi, and I was going to bring it up too, is that when in this whole idea of like, can you get over a cheating in the relationship? We need to take into account that not everybody believes in monogamy in the same way, right? And not everyone believes that having only one single sexual partner is as important. I think personally, I'm on one end of that spectrum, but like Yumi, I've also come to just open my mind up a bit more to different walks of life and the way that people treat it. But my question about that is that if it's just physical sex, that like say your partner, say you're in an open relationship and your partner is having just physical sex with someone else, right? How do you know? And how do you know that they're not making love? And how do you know that they're not slipping into that falling in love? And how do you know that they're not already in love and sharing emotional things? Like, and maybe you need to be so secure in yourself that doesn't matter. But I'm never going to be that secure.
And sex is an intimate thing too, right? So it's
really intimate.
Like you're revealing yourselves to the other person in a way. And so, especially if you have that emotional connection already there, that's going to sting.
I think there has to be rules in place, right? If you were in this, I don't think I could do like
you have to watch.
No, if you were living in the same
Hey,
country and
sure.
then you go out on Friday night and then not come home because you met somebody to go home with, that I think is a bit too much for me. But if you're like, I don't know, you're doing long distance, for example, and you're just like, wow, I just want to have a fun weekend with whatever, like, I think it's fine. So I would say the rules would be never with a friend, never with a friend, or
Wait,
someone.
a friend of your partner's or a friend of
Yeah.
your own?
A friend of your partner's.
Either, so it can't be, also should not be one of your friends.
Well, yeah, it should not be
Probably.
yes, right.
Wait, what's wrong with that?
No.
Well, because you're already so close, right? And that friend is already kind of a part.
It's not a big deal.
It needs to be like the random person outside of the circle. No association.
Unknowns.
Okay.
Someone
In this circumstance, yeah, that makes sense. That it would need to be somebody outside of the circle.
For example, would you prefer if your partner, like, maybe do it out of 1 to 3? If there was a prostitute, there was a friend, and then there was a random night hookup. In order, which would you prefer your partner to like sleep with?
Okay, so we're gonna preface this whole section. I love where you're going with this, Yumi. We're gonna preface this section by saying none of us are in open relationships right now. None of us want to be in open relationships right now. Nope. We're gonna crack that lid off that can and say, if we were in open relationships right now, all three of us with individual others, what would we need those rules to be? How would we deal with it? So Yumi's asking, what's out of these three options, right? A friend, a stranger, or a prostitute, which is loaded. That is a hot fire coming in, hot take. You want us to rank them in preference?
My preference
for your partner.
Yeah, for our partner or for their partner?
So
who's having sex in the situation?
Okay.
Yeah.
Me or them?
Your partner.
Okay, your partner is going to go.
Yes, your girlfriend.
Justin's girlfriend. Okay.
My girlfriend's horny. I'm not around for whatever reason, or she's tired of me. She's on the prowl. I'm going to go with I want her to have sex with a random guy as opposed to a prostitute, because I feel like they could work for it a little bit. It being a friend of hers, I think, is an issue, because then I'm going to be like, oh, they're going to end up together.
Yeah, it's scary, right? I think I'm on the same page with Justin in terms of ranking that one. I think.
And also, random guy could be like an accident. It could be wasted.
But
forgot that I existed.
But we're dealing with an unknown here, right? When you put in the question mark card, a random guy could also turn out to be a stalker, a creeper, someone who a sexual predator. Like, you don't know what. Like, having your girlfriend who is exercising her open relationship moment and just randomly meeting someone that you've never heard of, like, I would worry about her safety. Maybe I
hope she uses her best judgment.
You guys are such boys thinking about that. My thing is, what if they're really hot? What if they have like APAC? What if they're a celebrity? What if they're your dream guy? What if they're one of your soulmates? You don't know. What if you just love
definitely not. Definitely don't get that guy.
All that sucks too, Yumi. I mean, we were thinking about the most like basics, like hopefully she doesn't die tonight. But yeah, also don't want her to fall in love with someone else. Hence the reason I don't want to be in a relationship.
I think that's actually reflective of a massive difference between women and men. Men are just like tunnel vision, not really looking at the
safety.
Big picture.
Safety, big picture. I could lose her forever. Safety.
Didn't think about the celebrity component.
Yeah.
Mine
Didn't think about the soulmate thing. Didn't think about it.
Mine would definitely be one, prostitute. It's just a transaction. You're not going to see them again. You're not going to fall in love with again. Like, it's just a transaction of sex. So
it's also premeditated and I don't know. It feels
weird. If they want to have sex with somebody else, then fine. Have fun paying $500 or whatever it is.
Yeah. But also, that guy's probably pretty good at what he does. That's his bread and butter. That prostitute he gets paid to lay the pipe. So then all of a sudden, I might have my own insecurities about my performances.
Listen, Magic Mike is a fictional film. No one falls in love with Magic Mike.
Channing Tatum is real. And I know many women who have fallen in love with Channing Tatum. They haven't even needed to meet him. I damn near fell in love with Channing Tatum.
How would you feel if you met a girl and you really liked her and she was a prostitute or a stripper? What are your feelings on that?
Both have happened.
Really?
Both have happened? Go on.
I have, okay. Whether this stays in I have met a girl who has been a stripper outside of the stripping situation. She said, I'm a stripper. And I've met a girl who said that she was a prostitute outside of her working. And she told me about that. Yeah.
But did you date
Did you
them?
ask if I, no, I didn't date them.
Oh.
Sorry, was that the question?
Yes.
I wasn't sure.
Would you date them?
What if you vibed with them so well and you wanted to date them? Would you date them?
That's
if they were like kind of like getting out of the prostitution thing. Yeah, maybe. Depends. But then also,
I think a lot of it has to do with why they were doing it and how they handled themselves. I'm talking specifically about stripper, just to start with. I'm not quite comfortable yet commenting on whether I would date a prostitute or not. I haven't had enough time to think about that. For the stripper, though, I know guys who have fallen in love with a stripper or two from time to time. I think a lot of it depends on like how
there's a song about themselves.
It. There's a lot of songs about there are a lot of movies about this, dare I say. And I personally don't have anything against stripping, nor do I think that there's anything wrong morally about it. So that's not the issue. The issue for me wouldn't be like, I think that like, I don't approve. My issue would be the same kind of stuff we talked about earlier, like safety of her being in that environment, safety of me ever picking her up or dating someone who's in that environment. Right. But then also on the less evolved level, I don't know if I'm cool with the idea of men ogling my girl.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's just a really immature thing.
But then it goes back to, again, it's literally just a physical act with a transaction behind it.
Yeah. I mean, so for me, one of the other main issue for me would be, and again, this is just me and going back to just my own ego and self-esteem, like your career and how other people perceive it. People are going to find out. So like if you're kind of in the public eye, right? Like we kind of are, and our careers kind of are dictated to an extent by how the public views us. Like people go, hey, your girlfriend found these pictures. Like, this could be a problem.
Side story about that kind of thing that Justin was talking about. One time, I'll go very quickly. One time I was hanging out with some friends and there was a couple of new people there, a couple of new guys who were just kind of like new people. And we're all talking and chatting. This one guy was very, he was very gregarious. He was talkative and he was boisterous. And he started talking about his wife. And he started showing us pictures of his wife and telling us about their wedding and about his kids. And then he started telling us about his wife's porn videos and about how she is a porn star and now how he was a fan of hers first. And we're all just sitting there like, you don't tell us this. You're not supposed to say any of this to us. You're just supposed to you're not supposed to let people know about, okay. But he just was like, so like, that's a situation where like he had literally no hesitation about it. He was proud to tell us about it. And I found that to be so interesting. So every types of walk of life,
Like literally different strokes for different folks.
Yeah. Okay, question. You guys are all if you're in an open relationship, do you want to know or do you not want to know about the instances? Some people don't want to know. So I would say some people would want to know. You would want to know.
100%.
Yeah, because you want to know, again, what kind of, people are they hanging out with and associating with? Like, how not careful are they being? Like, have they literally gone and had sex with like 50 people in the past 4 days? Like that's an issue, I think, if you're okay. Even if you're okay in an open relationship, like, how open? Like, there's...
like, how big is that door?
How open are things becoming? Like,
yeah. Is it like a turnstile or like a barn door?
Are we going for a record? Like, what's happening?
Single file? Is it single file one at a time? Is it like, as long as you have rules set up in place. And I think Yumi said that really early on, is that as long as you're on the exact same page about what the expectations are and you totally trust that person, have at it, you fun kids.
Let's take a hard right. I mean,
don't know how
what better way go from open relationships, people being careless and like just having sexual partners creating this kind of, I don't know, pollution of their nether region, so to speak, and turn that into how do we make the world in less of an open relationship with plastics and carbons? You know, how do we make Mother Earth into somebody that, you know, maybe wants to lead a bit more of a pristine lifestyle? That works, right? That was a good,
great segue.
Yeah, this
Great
is where
segue.
people stop listening. They're like, I'm
All right.
bored.
Good thing we can edit this. It's going to go great. I want to start off by saying this. Here's an interesting idea, guys, and let me know what you think. Someone told me, not told me actually, we all know this, that the air's never been clearer around the world than it has been during COVID-19, right? Someone was telling me that Mother Earth can finally breathe, because now I'm in no way am I going to say that the disease has been a good thing. It's been absolutely horrendous, right? And it's been detrimental to everyone, dangerous. But the Earth got a chance to live without our pollution for a little while. The Earth got a chance, and like, if that's not proof as to how we need to change, then what is?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we needed that proof necessarily. I think
some of us did. Some of
of course.
Some people,
Yeah.
oh, did some people change their tune because of this fact, though? Like people that were not into the whole global warming thing changed their mind because of the break the world got because of the global pandemic?
I mean, I think it comes back to even just like, I know you guys spoke about the US presidential elections, but like the debate is between, do you believe in science or do you not believe in science?
Yeah.
And like, until Trump when he was not wearing a mask, he didn't really believe in science, right? And now he's wearing a mask, so you do believe in science. So the scientists are saying that you have a certain amount of years to correct this, otherwise the Earth is going to be irreparable and the human race is going to die. Why are people not listening to this? But I think it's a huge thing is it needs to start with like the higher ups. Like, this is why, well, let's hope Biden actually, you know, goes into office, into the White House, and does all these green initiatives, like changing everything to renewable energy and stopping coal. But that's where it needs to start.
Yeah, I mean, he is a centrist. I think what he will do is he'll put back in place the Obama restrictions that were placed on a lot of corporations and companies that are in the U.S. Those will be put back in place. As far as things like the Green New Deal, that's not going to happen. Plain and simple. It's just not, because he won't get the votes, A. B, we to get to those certain points, it is going to take a certain time, and there needs to be more of a plan on how to do it. Currently, that plan doesn't exist within the Green New Deal. So until they start to really lay this out and get the right people involved, because right now it's just people yelling, Green New Deal, and the plan to make it happen systematically and in a way that's not going to put everybody out of work isn't there yet. So they need to figure that out first. And hopefully Biden gets the right people in office that'll do it. But unfortunately, right now, he's kind of just hiring the same people that were there during Obama's administration, and there's not a lot of new minds in there. So it'll.
He's got time. He's got time. He's got a lot of seats to fill. There's a lot of cabinet seats to fill. Just give him time.
I still think that as far as the U.S. with regards to them leading the way with environmental policy, I still think that's going to be very much led by the private sector with the wind and solar companies that are actually doing great jobs in California and Texas, and then people like Elon Musk. I think it's going to spearhead more than the government, to be honest. I think the regulations that will be put back in place are important. And obviously, Biden as a leader saying positive things about helping the environment will help as far as the global climate of environmental policy, so to speak. But as far as actual action, it'll be the same as what Obama did.
Let's just start with the president saying that climate issues are
helps.
Real.
It helps because it puts pressure on
we need to step back in the right direction before we can start really heading down that path, because we're not facing in the right, and this is just in terms of America specifically, we're not facing in the right direction environmentally. Like we need to turn around first. And then once we've turned around, I agree, Justin, that not all of the policies are in place yet, but once we've turned around, hopefully we can start moving.
How do you feel things? I mean, you're probably more of an expert on a lot of this stuff than we are. Like, how do you feel things are going with regards to global environmental policies and technology that's helping the world to transition to renewable resources, and kind of, I think, how that's going to like pragmatically be put in place?
I mean, I think it's 100% slow, but there is, and I think it's really with the younger generation, they're all coming up with these incredible inventions just to like, even the other day I saw this video that implemented it in Amsterdam. They have these machines that release bubbles from the bottom of the river. And then by releasing those bubbles, it oxygenates the water and it captures floating rubbish from the bottom and from the top, just as it is, so that they can collect the rubbish before it goes into the oceans. And then with those bubbles, fish and all sea creatures can actually
get through.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's like a natural filtration system, more natural air filtration maybe, or bubble. Let's call it bubble filtration.
Bubble filtration, but even
I love it.
Right? But like, I think it's like there are these like simple yet incredible technologies out there that aren't getting the coverage that they should be getting. And once big companies like, you know, who's the Amazon guy? Jeff Bezos?
Bezos, yeah.
He just put 10 million into a new green initiative.
He better. He's got enough of it. He's got enough of my money. He better put it somewhere.
I know. But like, I think it just, people need to start investing in the right sort of companies and the right initiatives. Maybe I think the government does need to like do things like move towards renewable energy. I think they also need to tax people who use single-use plastic or buy single-use plastic. Invest in the environmentally friendly ones that obviously are going to drive the cost down a little bit once the demand is there. But if we've learned anything this year, like public noise is really being heard now and is really making movements and waves. So that I think will just keep continuing, especially when it comes to environment. So it is going to turn around soon. I do have faith.
Let's talk about single-use plastic and let's talk about bags, because that's something like we're talking about these policies, and other than voting for the people that we think can guide these policies the best, there's not a lot more that we can actually do physically ourselves, right? But single-use plastic bags is literally something that every person in the entire world can change their habits with. And you know, here in California, you're supposed to bring your own bags, right? But it's not always followed. Like and you're supposed to charge for bags, but sometimes I'm at the grocery store and like guys are like, oh, you want plastic bags? I'm like, oh yeah, how much do they? He's like, I just take a bunch, and he hands me like a stack of them. And I'm like, isn't this defeating the whole purpose?
Yeah.
But like, what should we do? Like, just for people listening out there, what is the response if we're trying to make a difference with our bag usage? What's the best way to go about it?
Be the example and say no, Justin. But like, seriously, I think it's just like, bring your bag, bring your reusable bag. This is why I created Peco Bag, because I wanted something that's convenient, that can fit into the size of your pocket, that you don't have to worry about, or that's not going to disrupt your day. It can hold up to 10 kilograms. And even by using it for 1 year, you can replace over 125 single-use plastic bags. Like, it's just... make the commitment to being like, I'm not going to accept any plastic bags. I'm not going to accept even coffee cups, Justin.
Yeah.
I'm just like...
No, I get that. And the plastic thing is a problem. So I'm not denying that at all. I think I like to take a few steps back and look at things from a more macro perspective. And where should we be funneling our resources down, because there's a finite amount of resources that we have as a global community to fight certain things. And I guess for me with the plastic thing is 80%, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, around 80% of plastics that kind of end up in the ocean come from third world countries or impoverished areas, places like Thailand, China, Vietnam. This is where most of the plastics are entering the oceans. Most plastics are being ended up in the environment in general. Figuring out a way to attack that 80% right there, I think is a good, it's a good focus for everybody's resources and mental capacity, right? And so, how do you do that? Well, one argument can be made that getting these places out of poverty, because in general, wealthier places are putting less plastics. Now, I know the argument there. They're doing
That's
less
just
of the
because they have
job.
money to recycle. That's just because
Exactly.
Singapore hands out 3 plastic bags for a bottle of Coke. Like you can go walk in a 7-Eleven and get a double bagged bottle of Diet Coke, right? Like plastic bags are being
Not ideal.
rampantly there. But I think is that they have an infrastructure to recycle it that is funded by the government.
My point.
Or do they not?
Because-
do they not?
because-
You mean?
No, the recycling system here is terrible. Only 4% of plastics actually get recycled here. And pretty much, I mean, they don't, apparently they even put the recycling stuff, even though we have the bins, they put it with the normal trash. So
they just burn it, though, right?
Exactly. And then they burn them. What do you think happens when you burn?
Well, yeah, it just goes up into the air and then all the chemicals.
Well, don't they use a filtration, some sort of filtration device that makes the smoke less clean?
Pollutant?
Is that bullshit?
That's
Is it bullshit?
Like carbon's going to go into the air, you know, all the chemicals. It's not a solution whatsoever. And then when you say like the third world countries are like the ones using it, yes, because it's cheap, but also like some of them have been the first ones to come out with proper, you know, collecting of plastics and making money for the locals. Even Thailand came out with I think it was the banana leaves made into like plates that have started distributing. Bali is one of the first places, Indonesia, who also one of the biggest polluters, come out with biodegradable plastic bags and biodegradable straws. All of that started in third world countries. So you can't blame them and say we need to fix them first, because they're the ones that seem to be actually doing the most, because they're the ones that are most devastated.
I'm not blaming them. I'm saying I think there's a correlation with getting countries out of poverty and diminishing the amount of pollution that's going into the environment.
True.
Right? So I think one big fix to attack 80% of what's being created and ending up in the environment is to figure out ways to give these people the economic support that they need to get out of poverty too, so they can, because I mean, it's a hierarchy of needs. It's easy in the first world to be worried about the environment because we're chilling, we're good, we got food. Whereas if you're, you know, in Haiti, like, shoot, man, that plastic bottle ending up not being picked up on the side of the road or ending up in the water, least of your freaking concerns.
But also, like these bigger countries, like for America, example, they were shipping a lot of their plastics over to China to like recycle and make do and put in their landfills. And now China's literally banned it.
Yeah.
So my eye is more on these bigger countries that are being negligent.
Yeah.
I think we got to do it all. Like, we're too late. We're behind the 8 ball in this one already. So I don't disagree, Justin, that financially buffering the infrastructures of some of these third world countries could definitely help lower their pollution, the effect that their pollution has on our world. But I should also not use a ton of plastic bags and cups, even if my own specific usage rate is not really what is contributing to the global crisis. But it is, even if it's just an ideology. I think that the ideology and the way that our culture thinks about it needs to be what changes first. And even like starting with plastic bags seems like a good place, like, because it's something that everyone can do. Plastic straws. I hate paper straws. I want to put my hand up and say, I hate cardboard straws. They dissolve in my mouth.
They don't work.
Then I'm drinking paper. But at the same time, I've been pretty excited to see the drop in plastic straws.
They'll figure out the paper straw thing. I think they'll get
there's
that
something
one.
there.
Surely that's a problem that we as a human race can crack. The paper straw melting in your drink.
I mean, there's plenty of straws. Like even when I was in New York recently, like all the straws that I was getting in the containers were also all compostable containers, compostable straws. So I don't often actually get a paper straw. It's either that or it's made from like rice husk or it's made from cornstarch. I'm surprised.
I don't know where you get your super fancy, bougie, eco-friendly straws, but I'm not at restaurants that give me the white wine rice grain straw. I've never heard of it. What other kind of compostable?
There's like pasta straws. The pasta straws, those work pretty well.
You mean just where you use a piece of pasta?
They're literally just pasta tubes. and you drink out of them.
Look, I think reusable straws are great. Like, why we have reusable utensils and forks and knives. Why can't my roommate's got like 5 rubber straws and uses them constantly.
So how plastic free is your life, Yumi?
Pretty plastic free. The only time I probably consume plastic is if I order takeaway from delivery or Grab or something, and then the restaurant I've ordered from puts it in a plastic bag.
And plastic containers.
Or a plastic container. Or there'll be restaurants that have it in a compostable container, but put it in a plastic bag. So they haven't got it quite right here still. But I really don't consume plastic. And even when I get press kits with PR companies, I tell them, look, I'll accept, most of the time it's no now, but I'll be like, I'll accept it, but these are my rules. No novelty items, no single-use plastic, no this, no that, and they actually adhere to it, and they like give it to me in like paper, or they give it to me in like a reusable thing.
So that's actually been a thing in the influencer community. I heard that coming out and saying like these press packages with all of the different materials you use, it's too much, because you're really, that it's just coming to me for this one moment, and I'm going to take the small little product that's in it and all the other packaging.
I don't know, in theory, Yumi, are you, like, how hopeful are you with regards to the direction the planet's going? Are you optimistic, or at this stage you're kind of like, we're so fucked?
I'm optimistic, but I also feel the weight, which I don't mind, which is why I'm kind of like, I'm fine for my career to transition, because I feel more purpose out of this as well. Mm-hmm. But I feel the weight to have to voice my opinion and to try make waves of change without being too dislikable. But then also, you also have to accept that side of it, because you have to just, even if you can just change one person, to me, that's like amazing. Mm. And so I'm optimistic, but I think it's going to take much longer. And the only way it's going to happen is if like other people start speaking out. This is what's great about social media. Like, people just need to make noise, and the noise isn't loud enough yet.
Yeah, I'm optimistic as well. But I mean, like the global warming thing, that's kind of happening. If we were capable of putting the brakes on all the CO2 emissions like today, trains not stopping. Take a long time, right? So your places are going to flood. You're going to have mass migration. You're going to have more of these. We're going to be at higher risk of these pandemics and natural disasters. Like that's not going to stop. Like, this is going to happen in the next 50 years, period.
It's already happening, like you said.
There's first-tier countries need to start putting stuff in place. They need to start getting their shit together on this ASAP, because they need to start building proper seawalls, system pumps for these coastal cities if they want them to survive. They need to start putting mechanisms in place for third world countries to handle the mass migration that is going to occur. People in the Bangladeshi floodplains, they're moving. They're going to move quick.
They have to.
And they're going to go somewhere with no infrastructure, less of an infrastructure than they already have in, like, say, Dhaka. These policies need to be made now. And I think I don't hear enough noise about this, because this is something that we already know is going to happen.
You're scaring me, Justin, because...
Yeah, this is scary.
This mass migration is a real thing.
Because I think I'm quite optimistic about just the speed of technology and how it's just speeding up so fast. I think we're going to solve a lot of these other environmental issues quite quick. But it's not going to happen fast enough. So we've already dug the grave. And so we need to start filling it back in now.
Well, okay. You're making me super scared, Justin. She presents the issue and problem in a way that I find digestible, and that I get inspiration. I'm terrified of what he's saying, not just because of what he said, but also in light of the idea that we're having more and more xenophobic tendencies in these nationalistic countries that are enormous. They already have issues taking in refugees, but with this large, massive migration that you're talking about, we're going to have a whole new population of climate refugees. Yeah. And the countries that are going to be able to take them in are not necessarily going to be the ones that are most willing to. They're going to be the countries that are least affected by the climate change. And if we can't take in refugees who are victims of like political warfare and things like this, like like, how are we going to deal with taking in this rapid influx of refugees who just simply can't live where they used to live?
It's a fucking problem. Which is why, I mean, countries like the U.S. need to figure this shit out. Countries, U.S., European Union, like they obviously don't have their shit together. They don't have the infrastructure in place to do it, which I think is one reason why you're getting a lot of backlash. Yes, there's a lot of xenophobic reasons behind it, but I think equally matched is just people realize we can't also necessarily handle this in a way that makes sense for everybody. So like, what are we gonna do? Especially countries in Europe, like Greece can't handle a bunch of refugees. Their economy is already totally screwed.
Italy probably can't handle a ton of refugees either. Like
Syria, yeah. So yeah,
and they're all right there. They're all the most accessible. They're the places where people are just going to naturally get off the boat.
You know what's crazy? I had no idea about this stuff. I feel like one of you should just change your Instagram profile now and become a climate migrator activist.
You don't even have to know about this.
Honestly,
you need to go study up on this. This is down your alley.
I'm not even sure if climate refugee is a term yet. I don't even know if it's a real thing, but it seems like it should be.
Yeah. So Singapore has a pretty good plan in place, actually. They've got plans for certain seawalls and stuff and pump systems. And like, of course, Singapore has a good plan for all this. But Singapore's definitely far more prepared than most places, than most cities. Miami's already putting stuff in place. Miami's already building like certain walls and pumps because they're already having to. Because places are flooding during high tide. Like places downtown. So they already have pumps operating 24/7 in Miami, and they're building certain walls and stuff. So like Miami's going to go first if they don't put more of the stuff in place.
Wow.
It's so crazy.
And then New Orleans.
Oh yeah. Like climate change is going to affect every specific locale differently. Like California is not worrying about floods, but we sure as hell have wildfires.
Yeah. What else do we want to talk about?
I don't know. We went all over the place on this one. I love it.
What about how's everything in LA? What about career wise, right? Like I mentioned that I'm changing my career chapter a little bit. Like I just think it's going that way. It's not that I don't want to do it anymore, but I'm prioritizing my relationship over career right now, which I've never done. So, and I think I just have to move into this new chapter, and I think it'll work out for me. So I'm moving, I'm still debating whether I get a talent agent in London or wherever. Because I think when I go to New York, it'll be just too hard to get a talent agent, to be honest. So, but I want to work more in sustainability. Like, I want to be known for that. Because ever since I started hosting, when someone be like, what's your dream show? What do you want to host? It was never the Got Talent, never the Next Top Model, never that kind of stuff. I didn't know what it was. And the only thing I thought of was like, National Geographic, David Attenborough, that's what I want to do. But I just don't think that's going to happen here. And I think
if you're going to London, you never know.
London could be different. But like,
you could be the next David Attenborough.
I would love to be the next David Attenborough. I work with headbands and stuff. But like, do you have, because I asked this question to Justin during COVID, has your mind shifted about your career or direction or the purpose you want to bring into it? Or are you still on the path that you always planned out?
I've never always been on the path that I always planned out. The path has never, like the way I saw that path. Oof. I never saw a path. There was no path in front of me to be like, hey,
it's been more of a mudslide.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Like, imagine that you're at the top of a muddy hill at Woodstock and you tripped right before you decided to slide down and you just kind of fell face first into the mud. That's what my entertainment career has been like mostly. No, in terms of, but that stuff has changed. I do feel like I'm starting a new chapter. And I don't want to say too much about like decisions that I'm making or anything, but I'll just say this, is it feels really good to be back in California. Like it feels really good. I didn't plan to be in Asia for a decade. 2 years back when I first went out there seemed like it was going to be way, way long. I was like, wow, if I even make it 2 years, that'd be amazing. 10 years later, I never knew how to get back. But now I am back, and I just don't feel the need to base myself anywhere else now.
Is it weird though for you to go through 10 years of basically not having management and having to hustle yourself and get everything yourself to having to rely on management to get you even an audition?
Yeah, it's super weird, especially during COVID, because the tricks that we have up our sleeve as entertainers are completely stripped away from us, right? We are in-person deal getters. We get that job based on our interactions with people. And when that's not possible, what do you do, right? So it is a totally different ballgame. I'm getting used to it. I'm getting used to trusting a manager to try to get me out there and stuff. So I think it just depends on who you're working with. But I miss the ability to be like, hit someone up like, hey, let's go have coffee. Let's talk about this. Like, what's going on? It's a different world. Yeah.
I mean, there's still some networking I think that you can do in LA because people are going out to lunch and dinners. So I mean, that's still there.
Not
the same.
I'm not going out to lunch and dinners, Justin. It's not that they aren't going. I'm not going.
Why are you going out to lunch and dinners?
Because of COVID-19, Justin. 2,000 people a day are dying in America.
I'm aware. I mean, again, it's a cost benefit analysis, right? So like, if your career and you moving forward in that, you're going to place a certain level of importance on face-to-face interaction with people. I mean, you go for a coffee, you go for a lunch if they're allowing.
No, you don't.
Right?
No, you don't, because it's not just your safety you're worrying about, Justin.
Yeah.
It's the greater good of America.
Yeah.
It's in general. Yeah. Even if you don't get sick, you're still putting other people at risk just by putting yourself in that situation. And it pisses me off that people are doing it around the world. I'm sorry. I'm done. Close indoor dining, God damn it.
Is there indoor dining right now?
Yeah.
In LA? I thought they stopped that.
No. California, thankfully, has pulled back now, and there's not indoor dining allowed in California. But other parts of America, there are, and it's just. I think California's taking it more serious than most. But I feel like if you're meeting somebody for lunch, outdoor dining, and it's a meeting, I think you go to that meeting. That's the difference between you and me, man.
Yeah.
I don't go to that meeting.
Because the bottom line is, man, what's going on in the U.S. right now? Shoot, go to that meeting. I may as well go.
I don't think I would do it. If I was in America, I would not do it. And I also think maybe it's because I've been in Singapore this whole time. So even going to New York this time, I was shocked.
Oh, yeah, I don't care.
Like, people just don't care. Like, we go to, the outside seating, all the perspex is up and blah, 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 and whatever, you have to keep your mask on when you order. But like, there were like, I was hanging out with like a group of 20 for that dinner. I was hanging out with a group of 20 for dinner. And then one of them decided, let's all go back to Rob's place and party. So then by the way, tiny apartment. So I don't know how people thought this was a great idea to go hang out in a shoebox. And then it's like, apparently one of them just called up someone and said, oh, yeah, come to this apartment. 5 minutes later, a pack of 15 random people started coming into the apartment. I go psycho, go into the bedroom, lock the door. And I can't remember who followed me at that stage, but I know that Rob was in the room at that stage. I was going hysterical, telling him how irresponsible he is, how dare he, how stupid they all are, how irresponsible. And like his friend was like, oh, but like, no, don't worry. Like I care about it too. I live with my mom. And oh, don't worry.
Why is he there?
This guy has a daughter. He wouldn't risk it. And I'm like, you don't know what they've touched. You don't know where they've been. Like, you want to bring people into like it was like 150 square foot apartment and pray that all of them have had a test and been responsible. You can't predict that. And anyway, basically my hysteria of yelling in the room shooed them all off and they all left. But I was like, it's so different from going through this in Singapore and knowing how real it is because they're so like, follow the rules, you're on lockdown, We had the mask on since January, basically. And then you go to America where they've loosely been like this and, oh, American rights and, oh, it's not real. Oh, it is real, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you guys just don't take it seriously, in my opinion. And so it was quite a shock from going from Singapore to New York. that New York is meant to be relatively safe, or one of the better cities that have got it under control. They don't have it under control.
Yeah, no, the control's an illusion, obviously, in the US at this point, and much of Europe and Latin America. I will say this. When I was doing my road trips across between LA, Kalamazoo and LA to Austin, more people were wearing the masks than I thought. Like in Texas,
that's good.
To be honest, I know the media's painted some bad pictures of, I think, the southern states in the US. Everybody in Texas was wearing masks when they were inside, from what I could see. Everybody. And then obviously you go to some of these more rural areas, and you know, those numbers dwindle down. The Midwest was an area that I felt had the most issue with wearing the masks. And I'd say, for the most part, in the metropolitan areas, people were wearing them. It was in the smaller towns in the middle of nowhere where I'd be at a truck stop or a gas station and be like 50-50. And that was more than I thought. And obviously in that time, there wasn't a lot of cases in those areas. But obviously it's coming back around to them because it was only 50-50, now their numbers have just skyrocketed. And now they're having issues. So I get the problems. And obviously, even if you're 75% of people wearing masks indoors, not enough. It's because everybody's wearing them indoors in Texas, and their numbers are going way up. And it has to be a cohesive thing.
Coming up with the meeting thing in Singapore, it's pretty under control, relatively safe. We have 0 cases in the community for the last couple of weeks, which is great. But saying that, I've also find myself not wanting to go to meetings and events. To me, I'm like, if this is really important, we can do it over Zoom. I don't want to, one, I can't be bothered going out. 2, I probably have a bit of social anxiety now being inside, and I quite like it, to be honest. But I just don't think it's, I don't know, I understand face-to-face is important in terms of getting someone's energy, but I also think you can do that over Zoom.
I disagree. I like face-to-face. And when you're somewhere like Singapore, it's not really here. They've done a good job. Yeah. So again, no problems here at all. No concerns here about spreading here in Singapore for me.
Face-to-face meetings are totally different. The difference between face-to-face and Zoom meetings are different based on what kind of meeting they are, right? Mm-hmm. So, for example, if it's a meeting where you have things that need to be decided and work must get done and discussions need to happen, right? And you're with a business partner or a colleague or a coworker, that can happen over Zoom and should happen over Zoom. That's great. And I think most people are doing it that way, right? I think the reason Justin might say that face-to-face is more important is because that's a different type of meeting. It's really hard to say, hey, Mr. Producer, who I met 3 years ago at a shoot for this thing, I'm in town now. Do you want to get on a Zoom call and just chat and catch up? It's fun to catch up, but I find myself catching up on Zoom with friends and family, and rarely am I networking over Zoom because I feel kind of like people are like, is this really just a chit chat, get to know each other? I have better shit I can do. Right.
Well, it's also more intimate. We're not robots. You're in person with somebody, you can feel their energy. You see them, you can touch them, you can smell them. You're going to remember the interaction more. It's a totally different thing as far as I'm concerned. And you're more likely to build a relationship, a mutual relationship that can benefit both parties and develop that trust in person. Again,
that's for that type of meeting, right? Yeah. There are other kind of meetings.
Yeah, I think if it's a purely calculative, work meeting where the relationship's already there. You're just planning, when do we do this kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, all of this is interesting conversation. It all gets magnified by 20 when you're talking about schools and children trying to learn virtually right now. So, Justin, I don't know if I told you this, but I've joined a substitute teaching agency in Los Angeles. Okay. And I'm going to be doing some virtual substitute teaching, which is something I used to do a lot of subbing back in the day, and I loved it. So it's going to be nice. But oh my God, as I'm going through this training session and the onboarding session of what schools are doing for education, it is insane what they're doing. So some schools are still going and meeting in person. So some schools are doing a hybrid where they meet a couple days. And some kids go on some days, some kids don't, and they virtual learn the other days. Then some kids are doing all virtual learning. But even within virtual learning, there's synchronous virtual learning and asynchronous virtual learning, which means in-person instruction on Zoom while I'm chatting and telling the kids what to do versus having something kind of like a Facebook page, but an educational social media page where I posted my morning introduction. I've taken roll. Everyone has commented that they're there. Wow. I've given you an assignment and posted a video and audio of me explaining the directions of the assignment. Then they go off on asynchronously, do their work, and then submit it through this portal that I give them commentary online with, and then go back. And the thing is, no school is doing it similar to another. It's all different. They're using different platforms. They're using Google Classroom, or they're Zoom, or it's Moodle, or it's Canvas, or it's Seesaw, and it's insane. And these kids are having a hard time with it. I can only imagine.
Well, I mean, because they're so accustomed, I think at that age, especially when you're say below the age of 15, 16, especially these days, you're so accustomed to your laptop to an extent being this source of entertainment and play.
Yeah.
And your entire education was revolved around it also. Like, it's got to mess with their little minds. So what do you think's best? Like, what's the best? Your ideal scenario for teaching people via the laptop? How do you think it's?
Well, first of all, you got to get in the classroom. I think that in-person teaching is so important.
Yeah.
There's so many things that happen that we don't even realize. Like you said, being in person, you're vibing off of people in a meeting, right, Justin? So just imagine multiplying that by 23 or 24,
kids,
right? And so you need to have that. You need to have that same connection, right? But okay, so one thing that I found really interesting, some schools are doing this to kind of solve the issue, because students aren't transmitting the disease at as high a rate as adults. It's just true. It doesn't mean kids are safe or immune, and goddamn our president for ever saying that. But it's true that transmission rates are slower. So the risk isn't the students. I mean, it is. We don't want any students getting sick, or we don't want their families or grandparents getting sick. But the risk is our teachers, because our teachers are exposed to a large number of families at one given time. So one of the ways that some classes or schools that have resources are doing is that they're bringing all of the kids in. They're doing all in-person teaching, right? But each class is only about 7 or 8 kids. So they've broken all the classes down into 7 or 8 student pods. And then each one of those pods has a substitute teacher or an educator who's credentialed but not a classroom teacher, who just guides that one pod. And that pod stays together all year. If there's a case in that pod, just that pod shuts down. The other pods at the school stay open. And then what happens is that the teachers virtually log into that pod and teach the kids through a screen. And then when that teacher class is done, another teacher will come on that screen, but it's still that one substitute or that one kind of closer educator with that one pod facilitating as the teachers cycle through on the screen. So the teachers will teach from home, the students will be in the classroom, and then they'll have educators who are watching. That's just one other solution. But what do you do when you don't have space, right?
Yeah.
You have to say the same number of kids, but spread them all out through the school campus.
So how drastically do you think this is inhibiting kids from learning right now?
Oh man, it depends on the color of your skin and how much money your family has.
And I guess how functional your family is. Because I guess a lot of times, a lot of these kids getting away to school was the way to kind of fix themselves mentally and emotionally, was having that time away from home. And now they don't have that. Schools are safe zones.
Yeah. In lots of parts of this country, schools are safe zones. It's where the kids can not only not get yelled at sometimes or not be abused, but also a place where they can get food. Yeah. And Yumi, I don't know if you've read about this, but a lot of schools have stayed open while closures have been happening just to provide food. Just so, and then these families are lining up outside of the schools. And so at some of the public schools near my house, I've seen them at certain times of the day. They have a really, really long line of cars, and it's just the school is still providing the public food that the children would get. And then some of these families are kind of
and they were doing that, and they were doing this before the pandemic, right? So even now, it's even more.
Oh yeah.
I feel like the next, if we're looking into future technology, it would be cool if you could, what is it when they, in Star Wars, they do it, you get a message and then you turn into a little 3D feature to deliver the message from wherever you are.
Okay,
Sounds
you mean
cool.
like a text message, a holographic text message?
Holographic.
Hologram. Yeah,
Okay, hologram.
hologram. It's called hologram.
Imagine it. All you had to do was hire studios, whatever, for each classroom, and you could holographically attend the classes.
Well, have you?
I think you run into the same situation because it's your hologram. It's not really you,
but it is you.
but it's your hologram.
It's copying you.
Like you can't reach up and put your hand on the kid's shoulder and be like, "Hey, man, is everything okay?" You know.
Just want to point out, as a public school teacher, you should never reach out and put your hand on that kid's shoulder.
Can you not do that anymore?
That is a regulation. That is California.
What about locking them in closets?
There has to be other children or adults present, so that it's not just your story against theirs.
Wait, so you can't be like, "Hey, man, is everything okay? Like, is everything okay at home?"
You are advised not to.
Damn.
No, you're supposed to ask them. You definitely want to talk to them about that. It's just the hand on their shoulder. You're advised these days not to touch a student.
I think that's a little much.
I'm not saying that that's a hard rule, bro. And I'm not saying that that's how teachers, it's a person to person industry, and it needs that human touch, especially in elementary school. You go teach a first grade class without touching a kid.
It doesn't happen.
Possible.
Well, I was
all over the place.
Yeah, I was in charge of a summer camp for a couple summers, and no, they touched you. Like because all these kids aren't getting the physical contact that they require at home, and you become that physical contact, and they are on you.
I want to go back and clarify something I said real quick, because I feel like I didn't get to explain myself. I said you asked how badly do I think students might be affected by this, right? And I said it depends on the color of your skin and how wealthy you are. And I wanted to explain real quick. I'm not obviously, but I don't mean that based on the student's ability to do this is how far they'll either proceed. I'm talking about the way that our schooling system is set up. Yeah. Like this company that I start working for, they provide subs for a huge wide range of schools, from struggling public schools to really, really wealthy boarding schools. And they said, you need to be prepared for all different types of situations. So there are situations where, if you're in a public school, you have to teach virtually at home, and they barely even communicate with you, and kids may not even log in. Like, how are you going to make sure kids log in? Truancy is the number one thing with this, right? How do you even make sure a kid attends virtual class? Versus imagine an extremely, extremely wealthy boarding school that could literally provide rapid testing at the front door every day, so that when students and teachers walk in, everyone just gets tested the moment they walk in, just like the White House. They know the results within 45 minutes, and then you can continue on with the school day. When there's a case right away, you don't have to shut the whole school down. So just by the difference in how much money they have, the education is going to get more and more separated, and it's sad. It's really sad. Sorry, I just want to point that out.
Do you think that teaching virtually is easier than teaching in person? And if so, do you think that teachers, I don't want their salary to go down, but if their salary went down a little bit because they get to teach from home and have more time to themselves or whatever, or with their children or whatever, will that make the education system more affordable for the people who can't afford it, if it's all virtual?
I would love anything to be more affordable for people who can't afford it, but I don't think so. And I don't think teacher rates are going to change. I think if you were to talk to most teachers right now, and again, I'm not a full-time classroom teacher, so I don't want to speak for them, but I have some good friends that I talk to who are. Nobody wants to teach from home. Nobody, right? And this is one of the things that the Republican legislators have been claiming, that the teachers just don't want to come back into work. No teacher wants to teach from home. It's so difficult because you have no way of knowing if you're doing your job well. You do, but it's not the same, right? And also, a lot of teachers teach because the instant gratification you get from helping a child overcome something is the drug that keeps them going. That's why they do it. Teachers don't teach for money. Sorry. Teachers usually don't teach for respect or prestige. They teach because they get that amazing feeling of helping a child, and you just don't get the same kind of thing, and it's tough. So no teacher thinks, I don't think any teachers think it's easier teaching from home. I think a lot of teachers who are younger might think it's super cool because I do have to say, ed tech is awesome. The technology and the software that they've come up with to do virtual learning is super cool. It's literally like Facebook, but for a good cause. Like you log in and it's just beautifully designed, and there's just such a great infrastructure, and it's for education. So there might be people who love ed tech who are like, this is the coolest thing ever. But I think generally most teachers are pretty bummed out that they can't actually be in class. Crazy 2020, huh?
Yeah. So in conclusion, we're all going to be fine.
Yeah.
Maybe.
These are just obstacles.
Some of us.
Guys. These are just obstacles and hurdles, except for climate change. Climate change is not an obstacle or hurdle. It is the end of time coming. So
But if you want to help the world be a better place, go out and buy a Peco Bag.
Get a Peco Bag from our favorite
eco
activist right here.
Go,
with the pink headband.
Go get a Peco Bag.
Oh boy.
Cool. Alan, are we podcasting yet?
I don't know. I never know.
Yumi?
What's the question?
Thank you so much for watching Are We Podcasting Yet? If you enjoyed this content in any way, please do feel free to like and subscribe. If you absolutely hated this content in any way, maybe you want to hate watch or hate comment or hate like, and also like and subscribe.